We're doing something kind of different
Yeah, we're doing a creepypasta thingy
because we feel like it.
because we feel like it too. Wait,
Wait, that made no sense. Story time.
you can't tell from like the video name or
The
the picture.
the creepy ass clown
we're
staring in
doing
your soul right now.
yeah, we're doing the creepypasta of Laughing Jack.
No, you have to do it in an adequate voice. Just
And
today,
Laughing
today,
Jack.
children, we're gonna read the classic story of Laughing Jack. Hmm. You want to start? Yeah, you're just gonna start off.
Alright, so let's start this.
Yeah.
It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son James was playing outside in the backyard.
Get the fucking house.
Bitch, shut up. I'm trying to fucking read.
I'm sorry.
Outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself mostly. He's never had many friends, but he has always had a wild imagination. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog Fido when I heard what sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I'm not sure who it was or who he could be talking to. Could he have finally made a new friend? Being a single mom, being a single dad.
Oh, the silly. Story time.
Being a single father, it's hard for me to always keep an eye on my son, so I decided to go outside and check on him. When I went into the backyard, I was a bit confused because James was the only person back there. Was he talking to himself? I could have sworn I heard another voice. James, it's time to come inside, I called out to him. He came inside and sat down at the kitchen table. It was about lunchtime, so I decided to make him a turkey sandwich. James, who are you talking to out there? I asked. James looked up for a moment and
I was playing with my new friend.
he smiled. I poured him some milk and continued to pry as any good father would. Does your new friend have a name? Would you like to ask him if he would want lunch with us? I asked. James stared at me for a moment before replying.
His name is Laughing Jack.
I was a bit taken from the name, what he had said. Oh, that's a strange name. What does your friend look like? I asked, a bit confused.
He's a clown. He has long hair and a big swirly coat nose. He has long arms and baggy pants with stripy socks, and he always smiles.
I realized my son was talking about an imaginary friend. I suppose it is normal for kids his age to have imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. It's probably just a phase. The rest of the day went by as per usual, and it was starting to get late. So I put James to bed. I tucked him in, gave him one big old kiss, and made sure to turn on his nightlight before going to bed. I was pretty tired myself, so I decided to go to bed after a long night. I had awful nightmares. It was dark. I was in some kind of run-down amusement park. I was scared, running through the endless fields of empty tents. Sorry, I couldn't read that. Tents. Broken down rides and abandoned game huts. The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses. And that... Go up, you dumbass. Oh, okay. Give me a second. In the game huts. All of this sick grin stretched on their faces. It felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though it wasn't. Another living thing in sight. Then suddenly I began to hear music playing. It sounded like Pop Goes the Weasel. The weasel began the, sorry through a squeeze box echoed through the park. It hypnotized. I followed its tune to the circus tent, almost in a trance, unable to stop my legs from moving forward. It was pitch black. The only light that came from a single spotlight shining on the center of the big top. As I walked towards the light, the music slowed down. I found myself singing along. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. The monkey threw. 'Twas all in fun. The music stopped right before it climaxed, and suddenly the lights shot on. The intensity of the lights was practically blinding. As I could see was a small black silhouette shuffling towards me. Then another one, and another one, and another one. Then there were dozens, all coming towards me. I could not move my legs, but I was frozen. All I could do was just watch as the haunted figures drew near me. As it got close, I could see that they were children. As I looked at each one, I noticed horrible disfigurements and mutilations. Some had cuts on their bodies, and some were burned, like horribly. Some were missing limbs, even eyes. The children enveloped me, clawing at my flesh, dragging me to the ground, and tearing inside of me. As the children tore me apart, and I faded away, all I could hear was the laughter. Horrible, awful, evil laughter. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw that a few of James' action figures were positioned facing me on top of my nightstand. I sighed. James had probably woken up early and put these here, so I gathered up the toys and made my way to James' room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I just shrugged and placed the toys back in the toy box and headed out the living room. A little while later, James woke up and I made him his breakfast. He was quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. James, honey, did you put the toys in Mommy's father's room this morning? His eyes shot up and looking at me for a moment, then quickly glanced down at his cereal. That's you, dumbass.
Laughing Jack did it.
I roll my eyes and respond, well, you tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in your room. James nodded and finished up his breakfast, then decided to go out to play in the backyard. I went to relax in the living room, and I must have dozed off because I woke up a couple hours later. Shit, I need to check on James. I was a bit worried. It's been over 2 hours and I haven't checked on him. I went out, stepped in the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I went out, getting nervous. I called to him, James, where are you? Just all I heard was a giggle from the front yard. I rushed through the gate, around in front of the house. James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked to him. James, how many times do I have to tell you to stay in the back? James, what are you eating? James looked at me and then reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of hard candies in all colors. It made me very nervous. James, who gave you that candy? James stared at me, not speaking. James, please tell Father, where did you get that candy? James hung his head down low and said,
Laughing Jack gave it to me.
You suck. My heart sunk. I kneeled down to look at him in the eyes. James, I've had enough of this damn Laughing Jack thing. He's not real. Now, this is a very, very serious situation, and I need to know who gave you the candy. I could see my son's eyes were teared up.
But
But
Mama,
Father,
Living Jack didn't give you the candy.
closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Jameson never lied to me. What was he telling me is impossible. I make a spit out. I made him spit out the candy and throw the rest of the way. James appeared to be fine. Maybe I just overreacted and could have gotten it. He could have gotten it from Tom and Linda from next door, or Mr. Walker from down the street. Either way, I'm going to have to keep a closer eye on James. That night, I put James in the bed as usual and decided to go to bed early myself. Suddenly, I was woken up by a loud bang in the kitchen. I sprung out of bed and hurried down the stairs. When I got to the kitchen, I was horrified, for everything in the counters had been thrown on the floor, and our dog Fido hung dead from a light fixture. His stomach was cut open and stuffed with the candy, the same type that James was eating earlier that day. My shock was quickly broken by a sharp scream coming from James' room, followed by a loud crash. I quickly grabbed a knife from the drawer and moved up the stairs with the speed of mothers whose child was in danger could have. And by mothers, I mean fathers. I burst through the door and flicked
I
flicked on
licked
the
all the
lights.
lights.
Everything in the room was knocked over and tossed it on the floor. My poor son in his bed crying and shaking it with fear.
Shaking it with me.
And shaking with fear. A pool of urine stained the sheets. I scooped my child up and ran out of the house. When I went next door to Tom and Linda's house, luckily they were still awake.
Alright, go.
They let me use their phone, and I called the police. It didn't take them long to arrive, and I explained what had happened. They looked at me as like if I was crazy. I searched the house and all they found was the dead dog and two trashed rooms. The officer told me, sorry. The officer told me that someone had probably gone into the house and done this right before making a quick escape when they heard me coming down the stairs. I knew it wasn't true. All the doors were locked, and the windows weren't even open. Whatever was in my house did not come from outside. The next day, James stayed inside. I didn't want him to leave my sight. I went into the garage and found the old baby monitor and set it up in his room. If anything comes into his room tonight, I was going to be able to hear it. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife from the drawer and put it at my nightstand. Imaginary friend or not, I'm not letting anything hurt my little boy. Soon enough, night came. I put James to bed. He was afraid, but I promised him that I wouldn't let anything happen to him. I tucked him in and gave him a kiss, turned on his nightlight before closing the door, and I whispered to him, "Good night, James. I love you." I tried to stay up as long as I could, but after a few hours, I felt myself drifting off. My baby would be safe at the night, and I needed to sleep. Just as I lay my head on the pillow, I heard a soft noise coming from the baby monitor. I had put my... sorry. I heard a soft noise coming from the baby monitor I put on my nightstand. At first, it sounded like an interference, some kind a radio would make. Then it turned into a soft moan. Was James asleep? Then I heard it, a laugh from my nightmare, the horrible laugh. I sprung up from my bed. I grabbed the knife underneath my pillow. I rushed over to James' room, creaked the door open, and I turned on the light switch. I took a... but it wouldn't come on. I took a step in and I felt a warm, thick liquid on my feet. Suddenly, James' nightlight came on, and all I saw was a horror laid out in front of me. James' body was nailed on the wall. The nails pierced through his hands and feet. His chest was cut wide open, with the organs hung out to the floor. His eyes and tongue were removed along with most of his teeth. I was disgusted. I could hardly believe who would do this to my baby boy. Then I heard it. A soft, desperate moan. James is still alive. My baby, my poor baby. In so much pain, barely clinging to life. I ran across the room and vomited on the floor, but my sickness was interrupted by a horrible crackling coming from behind me. I spun around while still whipping bile from my mouth. Then, out of the shadows, emerged the fiend responsible for the horror, Laughing Jack. His ghost, white skin, and matted black hair hung down to his shoulders. He had pierced white eyes, surrounded by dark black rings. His twisted smile revealed a row of sharp, jagged teeth, and his skin didn't look like skin at all. It almost looked like rubber or plastic, or he wore a patchy black and white outfit with stripes, sleeves, and socks. His body itself was grotesque. His long arms hanging down past his waist. He was and the way he was poised made him look like almost boneless. Holy shit, I cannot talk tonight. Sorry, guys. Like a ragdoll, he let out a sickening laugh, as if as if to let me know he was pleased with my reaction to his work. He then turned around slowly in front of James and began to laugh, even more horrific. The sight he had laid out, that was enough to shake me from terror. I snapped, "Get away from him, you bastard!" I rushed to the monster, raising my knife above my head and stabbed down at him. But as soon as the knife touched, he disappeared into a cloud of black smoke. The knife passed through and pierced James, still beating hurt, splashed with warm blood on my face. No. What have I done? My baby. I killed my baby. I immediately fell to my knees, and I could hear sirens in the distance, growing louder. My boy, my sweet baby boy. I promised Father would protect you, but I failed. I'm sorry, James. I'm so sorry. Police soon arrived to find me in front of my son, wielding a knife covered in my baby's blood. The trial was short insanity. I was passed to the... What the fuck does that say?
Ferropolis
House for the criminally insane, where I have been for the past 2 months. It's not so bad here. I can only reason. Yeah, the only reason I'm awake now is because someone is playing Pop Goes the Weasel outside my window. I'll talk to the orderlies about it in the morning.
The end.
And alright, everybody, I am sorry about my horrible reading. It is 2 a.m. and I'm exhausted, so yeah.
Yeah, what'd you think?
Yeah, what'd you think about that? It was fun for us, kind of thing. And seriously, the kid pissed.
The kid pissed himself. And the dog was named Fido.
Originality. Yeah, when I read that, I was like, wow.
And then he's Jesus now. The fuck, man.
I guess so.
The kid got nailed. That was one smart clown, though.
Yeah, actually, not gonna lie. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it about a 7 out of 10.
I'd give it a fucking billion out of 10.
Yeah, it was good, but I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
It was good.
Just because every other creepypasta, it has its faults.
This one does too.
Yeah.
That clown was fucking smart though. He Obi-Wan that shit. Anything else? Overall, the whatever the fuck we're gonna call this overall is 7 out of 10.
No.
No, no.
It's not what I'm calling it. But guys, like I said, if you well, I haven't said this. What am I talking about? If like you like this, if you liked us doing this, just like and favorite it. Well, like and favorite,
Do all that shit.
like it, and subscribe if you want to.
Just if you want to, man. You don't
We
have
love
to.
new subscribers.
We love to whore ourselves out.
Yeah. And yeah. If you want us to read any more creepypastas, just send them in there.
I think this one is a bit different for the others because instead of like saying all the funny shit at the end, we'll just like say in the middle like, just like he's reading it.
We weren't really ready.
Yeah, and then mid in the sentence be like, seriously, the fucking dog's name is Fido. All right, so yeah, that's basically we're gonna change it up a bit, but it's gonna kind of be like this, and we're gonna get a fucking better reader.